Hey, coffee experts. Those of you running independent coffee shops, you're always looking for ways that you can drop your costs. And we here at the Coffee Experts Club really understand that. And so we've started something called Indie Coffee Coalition. And what it's designed to do is to drop your costs on two of the things that you're probably experiencing the highest sales volume in your store. And that is energy drink and frat mix. Those two line items, we've created our own products and are offering you those products at a reduced cost so that you can cut out the Red Bull of America. You can cut out the main lines of energy drinks that you're doing and serve your own energy drink at a reduced cost on a line item that you're probably already making a lot of sales on anyway. The best way that you can grow sales is by dropping your costs and maintaining a current volume. So check us out at indiecoffee.co and we'll love to tell you more there.
Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club, where we discuss all of the insights, expertise, and drama that goes into making your passion your profession. Our hosts, Aaron, Ben, and Drew, are three coffee experts who have taken their coffee experience and turned it into true expertise. They have consulted with major coffee brands throughout the United States and beyond, providing operations expertise and growth strategy for drive-through openings, multiple locations, and everything in between. So brew yourself a cup and hang out a bit with the Coffee Experts Club.
Yeah, hey.
Whoa. Coffee Experts Club. Good to see you boys. How's life in the fast lane?
Excellent. And cold. It is quite the chill.
You look like you're in a blanket. You're like, wait a minute, I can still talk on the podcast today.
Every time I'm here in the States during this time of year, I feel like I need a blanket constantly.
Well, I mean, bro, I do feel like Belize hasn't done you any favors. It's thinned your blood. You're like, dude, I can't handle it.
I walked out yesterday around 9 p.m. and had violent shivers because of the cold. And I just tried to stop myself from shaking. It was only like 31 degrees. It's not that bad. I went to the grocery store the other day because I forget that we're in winter now. So I was just wearing like my shorts and a t-shirt that I've been wearing around the house. I got outside and I was like, oh, it's kind of cold out.
Dude, life of the at-home worker, life of the virtual worker. Ben just cruising around t-shirt. He's like, I forgot we were in winter. That is like quotable. That's like go down in history.
That is my life. That is my life.
I love it. Well, hey guys, I think, we talked about a little bit as we prep for the show today, but I think we are in the midst of end of the year annual eval season. Like I feel like we've got half a dozen projects going right now that are just annual eval stuff. You know what I mean? Drew's breaking down comp packages, like Drew we just came off a call, Drew and I, with a client where he's got comp packages broken out. This is what we did for him last year. This is what we're suggesting this year based upon here's where the market standard is. Like Drew's getting freaking nerdy as heck. I've got like comp eval information out there where we've pushed out to all the employees, hey, do a self eval. And this is actually the form that we're going to use on your own eval. And that way it's not a surprise attack when we get there. I think all of us, Ben, I know you were talking about a client that you are in the middle of some eval stuff with. I think we all have good data we can bring to the surface. When it comes to coffee, though, I think a lot of times coffee shops aren't thinking like a lot of other America thinks, and that is your people want to see raises. Your people want to see bonus structure. Your people want to see ways that they can make more money. And I think you as an operator, you as a coffee shop owner can a lot of times just feel like, hey, we're just holding it down. You know what I mean? Like I'm not always thinking about how do I sustain my best employees. And I think we really need to talk about that today. Maybe you guys can give me some insights from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that we learned a little late in the game back in the day. You can actually lose a lot of really good people by not evaluating them. There's a lot of great workers out there who are like, I never get an attaboy. Like I'm just over here working all the time. And for them, like an evaluation is where you could say, holy crap, you are doing a great job, and give them those attaboys. If you're not having that type of evaluation on a regular basis, and those people are going to be like, what am I doing here? Like nobody ever says good job. I'm working my butt off. I don't ever see raises. Like I'm out. And I think in our industries, especially, like we think of evaluations as like these, like, go to the principal's office. I'm going to tell you everything you've done wrong, but you've got a lot of star employees, and that's good time for you to just sit down one-on-one, face-to-face, and say, hey, here's how awesome you are and why I think you're so awesome and how important you are to this company, and how we'll do whatever we can to keep you around. You got to do that with your people. Otherwise they're going to bounce. Yeah. And I mean, I think originally we were doing a bit of arbitrary decision-making. And when I was the recipient of the arbitrary raises, I was happy about it, but when I wasn't, it was kind of confusing, and I think providing that clarity as far as what you're expecting from your people and
giving them, when you're working a 9 to 5, which is essentially what this can be, and it's just every day is the same, and you don't have metrics and goals that you're given by your company, it kind of makes it seem like you're just working yourself in a circle. And so I think when we did get to the point of providing like for lack of a better term, a roadmap for these kids based on their position, based on their performance, you do see a lot of those people actually excel, because I think a
Mhm.
lot of people are just waiting to be told what to do and how to do it well and the goals to reach in order to, gain more, if it's, responsibility or a new position or just more opportunity. I think a lot of these young kids are looking for something like that.
Hmm.
I think too, let's call out two things got mentioned that I think are really important. Number one, knee jerk raises. Like, let me just, can I just tell you that's not a good way to do things?
No.
Like, because let me tell you what knee jerk raises do. In the heart of the owner, they're like, I just gave the guy a raise. Like, I just told him he was doing good job. It creates like this almost like self righteous entitlement of you just did something for someone. But just like Drew was talking about, that feels good to employees when it happens. But when it doesn't happen, it makes them lead to new narratives that they're creating of, oh, I must not have gotten a raise because of X. Oh, I
Hmm.
must not have seen an increase because of Y. And they come up with their own stories and then they begin to get bitter. So I just spent hours over the weekend on conversations with, some of our team down in Belize of having to work through some of their frustrations because we haven't done the best at rolling out a consistent quarterly check-in system. I would say you always want to do quarterly evals. And it's not just for attaboys, attagirls like Ben's talking about. I think that that's great, but it's also giving them an opportunity to get things off of their chest too. Hey, let's talk about some of these false narratives that maybe they're living under. Let's pull apart some of the things that, because like these kids are telling me things over the weekend that I'm like, okay, hey, can I just stop you real quick? I just want to say I respect you. I love you. I want to hear your thoughts on things. Everything you just said is not true. Like all that stuff you just said, like you've made all of that up. That's a totally false narrative. That's nothing how Drew and I feel. That's nothing how we're looking at things from a management perspective. And you're working from a false sense of truth. That's not actually what happened in those scenarios. Let me reset for you exactly what the truth was of how that worked. And by the end of the call, all of those calls who all came at me disgruntled, by the end of that call, all of them were like, thank you so much for making the time just to listen to me. And I think at some of the time, it's just your people need to know that you value their opinion. I think it's super
Hmm.
important.
That's a great point. If you're going to go the route of your employees having ownership in how the shop is run, ownership in how the sales are doing, ownership in how clean the shop is, you have to also then say, okay, I'll take ownership in your opinion. Because if we just say, hey, I want you to be an owner in all of these things, and I want you to have the responsibility. And the second they come back with a, hey, what about this? You go, man, that's no, doesn't matter. Like that immediately tells somebody, oh, so everything you just said was fake.
Well, and we've all experienced how when something's broken and it doesn't get addressed within the first couple of weeks, people just stop seeing it, and then it
Yeah.
becomes like a point of annoyance. Rather, they don't necessarily realize that that's what's happening, but if it's not reported, which can sometimes happen, the communication chain, things will get passed up, but not passed all the way up to the people who can fix things, and so then the employees are slowly losing confidence in our ability to either, replace a piece of equipment or to fix a leaking pipe, or which all, paints that picture of we don't care, when the reality of it was we just didn't have the right channels open for people to kind of communicate these things to us in real time.
We've talked a lot about on this show, delegate, elevate. That's something we do with all of our clients. Like, let's really ask ourselves, owner, who has the tendency to wear every damn hat on the wall, right? Like, let's really ask ourselves, but do you? Some of that strokes our own ego, right? Some of that strokes my company needs me. If I didn't do this, it wouldn't get done. And maybe some of that's true, but I would push back on you're making your own nightmares too. You know what I mean? You're telling yourself that, but you probably could task down, you probably could empower some people. And really, in all honesty, these evals don't have to be owner level evals. You know what I'm saying? Like, what I would really recommend is there's a great system out there. We use it a lot. It's called EOS, Entrepreneurs Operating System. It's just a operating system for people, right? You don't have to pay for tech. Listen, the most expensive part of it is probably buy a book unless you want an implementer
Mhm.
to come in and implement it out for you. But I don't think you need that out of the can. Like, I think if you want to read a book, great. Traction's the book, or Rocket Fuel's another one if you want to read a couple books on it. But part of EOS's system that they roll out is 555 evals, right? So it's lining yourself up against the five. ethos statements? What are your mission statements? Whatever it is that like is the heartbeat behind your business. How are your people lining up those 3 to 5 items there? How are they living up to their 3 to 5 primary roles or responsibilities? You know what I mean? Like what is the main core KPIs people call, right? Key performance indicators. How are they living up to their job description and their role? And then the last 3 to 5 is the 3 to 5 big rocks that you've assigned out to people for that quarter. How are they living up to those 3 to 5 things? And the thing I really love about EOS's 555 quarterly evals is really simple, right? Because you can blow through those 5 really quick, right? Those 3 items, 5 of them each. And then the heartbeat behind the 555s that I love the most is you get to have conversations about what's working and what's not working, and you're able to talk about that with people of, hey, let's identify some problems. And that gives you the opportunity to coach people up. You know what I mean? Where they're able to say what's working and what's not working. And then you're able to say what's working and not working. So you give them an attaboy, attagirl, and then you say, hey, these are some things I'm concerned about. And then the format, and I would love to give you the format. It's free online. You can find it, but we've kind of wrapped it our own way with the Collab team. If you want that, you can just message us on any of our socials, 555, and I'll send it over to you. But the format is great because it gives you an opportunity to speak to those things quarter over quarter. So then you're able to flip back one tab and say, didn't we have this conversation last quarter? And then when you come to the point of annual raises, annual evals, like we're in the season we're in right now, that is a much easier conversation because you've been tracking with them for all the quarters. And it's like, listen, we've been talking about this for 3 quarters. I can't justify giving you this much of a raise. I can give you a percentage of that maybe based on a very metric way of us tracking how things have been working, but I can't give you your full bonus. Or the people that have just been killing it every quarter, it makes a lot of sense to be able to give them a raise like you.
And the great thing is having those KPIs on there. Obviously, in the coffee industry, that's, if I was doing a 555 evaluation with the manager, I'd have their shop sales, their shop's cost of goods, their labor percentages. If my goal is to keep labor at my shop, below 20%, and quarter after quarter after quarter, I look back at the end of the year and I see my manager's labor percentage on that 555 has been 32%. I
Right.
go, hey, sorry, bud, not getting as big of a raise this year. Like, look at what's going on. And actually, we should probably talk about this. What's not working for me is how high this labor has been. Obviously, I would not advocate for having that high of a labor for an entire year, but like,
Sure.
for example, that is a really easy, like real world way to take an evaluation, base it off of what the numbers they can control. And then just like you said, then we could talk raises and there's nothing that goes on in the background that says, well, he got a raise because the boss really likes him, or she got a raise because, she's the quote unquote best manager, but nobody really likes her like that. It just takes all of that, just makes it black and white.
Well, and something that we do as owners is when we do migrate from doing everything to kind of delegating things out is we have a tendency to assume that there is, knowledge in this person to take the actionable steps that you would want them to do to change
Right.
that. So like when a manager is like, yeah, I have 32% labor, what does that even mean? And how do I even work on that? And what does it look
Right.
like to take a tactical position in order to kind of change these things? And you don't want someone to be like, all right, I'm going to cut all these shifts, and then your customers are being underserved. And it's like, well, you said you wanted less labor, and giving these kids or these young people the opportunity to see like, okay, these are the metrics that actually matter to the boss and to the business and its health. And like, I can ask questions now around things that I don't understand so that I can learn myself and be more useful to the business. Cause whether it's cost of goods or labor or employee retention and satisfaction, there's a lot of things that we nuance when we create the business, the way we deal with people that can't just be replicated by, hey, you're the manager now. Like, I hope you do it as well as I do.
Ben, you did a great thing this last week for one of our coffee clients where you actually created a form. And I think this is great, especially when we're talking about management. Like maybe you're looking at ways to eval. I would say you as the owner probably need to evaluate your top level, right? Because that's not fair to put anybody else. Like you need to evaluate your top level, let your top level evaluate everybody beneath them, right? Like create an org chart. Who's teeing up into who? And let those people run the evals, right? But you're going to probably do your top level. Ben, you rolled out a great thing this last week, a collector form where you're going to actually push out on a weekly basis for a set of weeks. Hey, how are these leaders doing in these 3 areas, metrically 1 to 10, and then why you answered the way that you did so that we can collect that data. And I think, setting up a quick Zapier that's based off a calendar trigger, right? Where you're like, every Friday, I want this email to go out that's going to email out these 3 people with this exact form that they're filling out. And then let's have a conversation about that on our next one-on-one. I think setting up a system that's like a closed loop system, that's a very easy lift, that doesn't take a lot of work. That way it's like, no, 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 I'm not just going to create this great tool and then get to pass it out, or I'm not going to create, because that's another thing that we can do, right? Come up with this great idea. It sounded really great. In the moment we heard our friends talk about it, we even built it out. We started we put it into place, and it happened like 1 or 2 times. And then we walked away from it. And then we're at the end of a quarter and we're like, damn it, I forgot to stay on top of pushing that out. Instead, no, no, make it easy on yourself. What can you set up by way of automations? But I really liked it. I don't know if you want to I guess I just gave all your thunder away of what you did, but I thought it was a great system. And I think it's going to really serve that client well for evaluating their people in a very metric way.
Hey, experts, we've got something really awesome that we do here at Coffee Experts Club, and that's called the My First Drive-Through Coffee Masterclass. So if you're opening your next coffee shop, I think a lot of times you may think to yourself, I know what goes into opening a coffee shop. I've been doing this for years, but maybe you've been doing it for somebody else. And maybe this is your first option of starting a coffee shop on your own. Or maybe you don't know anything about coffee and you're just like, I'm looking for a good investment opportunity. Starting a coffee shop seems like a good place to put it, and you're going to enter into it. But what you don't know is all the things that you don't know, right? And so what we've done with this masterclass is taken behind the scenes, how you find your first location, what you need to be thinking about in finding a location. We give you a gift in the masterclass where it's a step-by-step process of how you're opening your coffee shop, the different checkpoints you need from coming up with your plans and talking with the city, and then negotiating a lease. And then how do you build a team, and what are the different pieces you need to be thinking about? It's a great masterclass, door to door, start to finish, completely free on opening up your next coffee drive-through. So check it out. It's at myfirstdrivethrough.coffee, and it's a great masterclass. You won't regret it. We'll see you on the inside there.
Maybe we can talk about metrics for a minute, because I know we've all come out of some place that wasn't very metric, was left up to just the gut of the owner. And it was like, man, when he was excited about you, you really felt it good. When he was not excited about you, which a lot of times just subject to how much anxiety he was carrying, like that really played against you.
Yep. I think a lot of owners it can be overwhelming to say, okay, how do I determine whether this person is good or not? But if you break it down by what's important to you as an owner, it gets easier. For me as an owner, if we have a scorecard that we're looking at every week, which we advocate for having a weekly scorecard, what's important to me is my sales, my cost of goods, and my labor. Okay, I'm going to start there. I maybe have a bunch of other numbers that are important to me, but say that's my top 3. Your next question from there should be, okay, how can this person that I'm evaluating affect those numbers? Or can they even affect those numbers? If they can't affect those numbers, then it's pointless to evaluate them based on that. Let's say they can. Okay, they can affect those numbers. Then we say, okay, how can I measure if they're affecting those numbers well or not? Well, I have a scorecard. So great. I can go over that scorecard with that manager, and all of a sudden I've got metrics that are black and white that I'm evaluating them on. Sales are down. Okay. Are you having your people upsell? We were upselling last month. Why are they not upselling this month? Okay, let's start upselling. What sales are down? What do our car times look like? And from there, it becomes very easy to get to real world numbers and real world evaluation. And if you feel like your manager is not working well, or is performing poorly, you can actually back that up with numbers, because you might feel like they're performing poorly, but actually their shop is on fire. And they have the lowest labor and lowest cost of goods. And then you have to step back and go, okay, if I was evaluating them just based solely off what I felt, I probably would have demoted them, but I should not do that, because then I'll kill this shop. So taking that through line of your scorecard to your black and white numbers, and then adding in something else that's maybe a little less, quantitative, are they respected by their employees? Well, that's easy to find out too. Just send out a quarterly survey to all of the employees in the shop. Say, what do you think of your manager? 1 to 10. Do you respect them? So you can quantify all of these. It's just a matter of kind of thinking through first, what are the numbers that are important to me? And then how does that through line work through all of my managers down to my employees?
Yeah, and that sounds like a big load, to kind of find all that stuff. But for me personally, the way that I operate, I almost get an anxiety around evaluation times, because I'm like, well, because I didn't have these things in place, it's a whole lift every time that I have to go meet with somebody. It's like, I have to review their position personally. I have to, assess what I think and what I've heard from baristas. But when you do that list up front, you can just pull up your sheet, or review your last call, or you have things in place where you can lean on and rely on, that every time you come into a call, you're actually prepared, rather than having this week of anxiety of like, okay, what do I need to have in place? What do I need to review? What do I need to have ready to talk about? You have these things already done because you did the lift up front. And the nice thing about that is it keeps serving you in the next quarter and the next quarter and the next quarter. It's
Mm.
not just a one-time thing.
The thing that I really love about sending something out that's collecting something from people is you have content to discuss, right? Because you as an owner, you're already carrying so much stress, right? You're carrying all the bills, you're carrying all the shifts, you're carrying all of the stress around like, are people dealing with your customers the way that you want them to be dealt with? You're caring about like all the numbers and all the payroll and all of like it all starts stacking up and you're just like, there are a lot of owners that are just under so much stress because they're carrying so much. And then we come into a conversation like this and we're like, you should be doing evals. And they're like, great, why don't you stack one more thing on top? I would say if you like come into this eval season with a lot of humility, right? I think sometimes as leaders, we don't realize, no, your people are going to respect you when you talk to them honestly and that you come at them humbly, right? Now, if you are always talking about honest and humble, but you're never making action, then that's a different problem, right? But like maybe you're coming into this scenario and you're like, I don't feel like I have anything pulled together for evals, or I don't even know what I should be evaluating this person on. I would encourage you to have an honest conversation with them. Use this eval time to sit down and say, hey, let's come up with some metrics that you feel like would be good for me to evaluate, right? Because that gives them some buy-in, that gives them some voice, that gives them some ability to really chase after something that's important to both of you guys and have some back and forth, determine what those metrics are. And then once you determine the metrics, say, okay, now how could we collect that, right? Let them have some buy-in in that. Let them put their brain behind that. They're probably not half as stressed as you are, right? So let's have a conversation about it, and it's going to only benefit them. Then you've come up with a system. And then from there, you can roll it out and try and do some sort of collection of data before the next time you meet. And then I would say, commit to a system. 555s are just what we use. I'm sure there's other great ones out there, but find a system that you can just is your go-to every time and get really good at it. And the thing I love about 555s is you can push them out and your people can put in their information before you get there, or they can choose to give it to you when you get there, but have some sort of like, no, they've put some brain power into this too. Otherwise, you just are stacking more and more load on yourself. It's not serving you. It's not serving your people. And then what it's leading to is more explodes. You know what I mean? Like all of us, like, can we just be honest right now? The more that we carry stress, the more explosive it makes us as people. That doesn't benefit your business. That doesn't benefit your people. So how can we relieve you from some of that stress by, just like Ben was saying, what's your go-to? Make your go-to easy. Don't have to think about it every time. Don't have to make it some big, like Drew was talking about, like building up this anxiety around, I've got to have something pulled together. How can you keep this super simple, but in a way that translates and is valuable to people, right? Because the other side of that is, if you show up and it's not valuable, they're like, what a waste of time. You feel like it's a waste of time. They feel like it's a waste of time because it is a waste of time because it was half baked instead of like putting some time with your people to develop a good system.
It's funny, you'll find as you create these evaluation systems transparently and you work through your compensation packages and your raise structures transparently with your employees, people start getting excited when it comes to evaluation time because they know how they can get a raise. They know how they can get a bonus, and they know that comes through the evaluations and how they perform. So you send out that 555 a week ahead of time, and all of your employees are like scrambling to fill out all their information because they want to get on that evaluation. So they can say, look at what I've done. According to what I've done for the last quarter, that means I get this X raise. And it kind of takes that evaluation season out of like oh God, I have to go get evaluated now and sit down and sit on my call to like, hey, can we schedule my eval? Like next week, I'm ready to go. Again, it just increases that positive buy-in from your employees so that they're excited to be showing you how well they've been doing, which is, way better than like, oh God, I don't want to talk to the boss right now.
I think too, like when it comes to this kind of conversation, a lot of times we can revert back to corporate, right? Like we can revert back to, well, I wonder what the big guys are doing. Can I just acknowledge this? Nobody wants to work for the big guys, right? Nobody wants to work for corporate. Like that's not you've got something so cool. Like your coffee shop is so cool. The people want to work for something cool, right? Like, so
Yep.
like you can take cues off of maybe some of the stuff, but don't just roll out some super, like if your culture is cool and vibey and like people just love the vibe when they roll in and the music's on, they're able to serve customers that like you're a happiness factory. You know what I mean? Like you're creating that. Don't like slip into some new like corporate crunchy, I'm going to go through 55 lines of data and rate you with check boxes. Like that feels so counterculture. Realize one of the things I really love about the 555 system is it's so simple. It's not super corporate crunchy. It's like play into your strengths, folks. Like if you've got a cool business, make your evals cool and don't overthink it. Like I think a lot of owners, like maybe they haven't worked a corporate job, maybe they've never done this before. And so then they divert to, well, what are the corporate guys doing? Well, like nobody wants to work there. Like that's not what they want. What they want is to work at a cool job that's going to compensate them, make it wrapped your way and make it feel cool, make it feel fun, make it something you're, like you said, Ben, the employees actually are excited to talk through because they get to strut their stuff a little bit, right? They get to like brag a little bit about what they've been doing, and you can critique back down and say, hey, I see those things. Yes, good job. And I have these things I'd like to talk to you about.
Yep.
And one thing that can be a huge focus, obviously, is our sales revenue. But one thing that we also don't always think about is it's almost a revenue of how our people are feeling coming in and out of the store. You know, is it a healthy version of the business? Are they coming in comfortable and happy? And how do we nurture that forward in such a way it's not tangible necessarily, but your store will perform based on what those results actually are. The same way that you're excited about increasing your bottom line, you know, we should be excited about finding new ways that we can increase the engagement. And, you know, some scheduling software has that ability. I remember getting a little, you know, your employees rated this shift a sad face. And I was like, what was the sad face about it? So, you know, finding out
we're busy.
finding out ways that we can increase that version of the bottom line as well, I think is what all of this kind of orients around, because happy baristas, happy employees can make the business happy, which makes your customers want to come back.
It's crazy how those two parallel, man. It's crazy at the vibe that your shop is performing at is how your sales are going to be performing. It's very, very rare for us to be, listen, we're under so many hoods. We're talking to so many businesses. We're looking at so many people's scorecards and their numbers. It is so rare to find a business that is killing it numerically where the people are unhappy to be there, right? But the people that are happy to be there, we saw it this week, even just down Davis Maestro. I felt like I had those couple of conversations and immediately we got like 3 5-stars from customers. Just by me having some hard conversations and working through it with people. And I promise you, it's when you address some of the pain, let people feel heard, it causes the energy to increase better around the stand, which actually is what's going to lead to more sales. So don't miss it. Coffee experts, Drew, Moody, Ben Clatterbuck. Excellent to be with you guys. Excellent to meet with you guys today. All of you who have coffee shops out there, man, we know it's not easy. We're grateful to be in the rungs with you guys. We're going to make it through this holiday season. Remember, it's just a season. You're going to make it. And we'll see you guys next week here on Coffee Experts Club. See you guys.
Cheers. See you.
Thanks so much for joining us today. For those of you who are looking to become a coffee expert yourself, we offer an incredible, thorough training online for opening your first coffee drive-thru at www.myfirstdrivethru.coffee.